There are days when you don't know if you're truly living or merely existing. You smile out of obligation, not out of joy. You get out of bed not because you're inspired, but because you're expected to. And even if everything appears to be fine, deep down you know something inside you is slowly dying. Not because you're weak, but because you're being swept into a life that doesn't belong to you. We're not defeated by one major blow, but by hundreds of quiet compromises we make with ourselves each day. When you let emotions dictate your actions, when you wait for praise before doing the right thing, when you delay living truthfully until circumstances feel perfect. But life owes you no ease, and you don't need it to begin changing. The Stoic knows this well. Strength doesn't come from conditions, but from how we choose to respond to them. That is real power. So if you're ready, join me in exploring the 8 rules that will change the way you face this life. 1. Don't avoid hardship, train within it. No one enjoys discomfort. From a young age, we're taught to avoid the cold, avoid exhaustion, avoid embarrassment, avoid failure. Everything in this modern world is designed to make life more comfortable. Fast food, instant entertainment, doorstep delivery, automated replies, shortcuts for everything. But within that comfort, a quiet danger is unfolding. Your inner strength is quietly fading, and you don't even notice it. Hardship doesn't come to punish you. It comes to test whether you're truly living or merely surviving. What defines character is not the days when everything goes smoothly, but the way you carry yourself through the most difficult times without losing your dignity. The Stoic doesn't view hardship as an enemy. They see it as a silent teacher, an unannounced exam, a mirror reflecting who you really are, without polish, without excuses. Think back on yourself. When did you truly change? Was it when everything was calm and pleasant? Or was it in those moments when you were on the verge of collapse, yet you kept moving forward, slowly but steadily? Hardship, when seen clearly, doesn't block your path. It is the path. It's the training you need if you want to grow in wisdom, virtue, and inner resilience. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle on the path becomes the path." That's not an empty slogan, it's a sharp, practical mindset. Whatever makes you stop, try harder, lift your head and face, and it is forging you bit by bit into a version of yourself you've never met. But the real danger lies in this. Most people avoid this process. We skip the workout because we're a little tired. We avoid necessary conversations because we fear conflict. We retreat from opportunities because we fear failure. And each time, we trade a piece of ourselves for a moment of comfort. But the comfort of today, if bought by avoidance, will become the disappointment of tomorrow, and the cost will be your confidence, your self-respect, and your mental strength. The Stoic understands this. If you want to remain steady in a chaotic world, you cannot let your environment define your capacity for endurance. Instead, you must train deliberately in times of peace so you won't collapse in psychological war. Not because you're hoping for hardship, but because you don't want to be unprepared when it comes. Like a warrior who trains without an enemy in sight, you strengthen your inner world through small, intentional acts. Start with the simple things. Turn off the AC in the early morning, sit in silence for 10 minutes without checking your phone, eat a plain dinner without seasoning. Not to punish yourself, but to remind yourself that you can endure discomfort. And in that self-mastery, you begin to build something no one can take from you: inner quality, spiritual toughness, and the ability to remain calm in the storm. Seneca once said, "You must live as if you've lost everything, not to be afraid, but to realize that you can survive and move forward." He wasn't advocating suffering for its own sake. He encouraged proactive training, so when life really takes something from you, you don't break. You've stood there before, and you know the way back. The beauty is this: you don't have to wait for hardship to learn something. You can choose to walk into challenge with clarity and freedom. And each time you do, you become more resilient, not because you never fall, but because you've learned to rise faster, stronger, and calmer. Remember this: you can't become steady by walking only on smooth ground. And you can't become great by avoiding the roughest roads. So next time something makes you hesitate instead of backing away, ask, is this a chance to grow? And if the answer is yes, don't hesitate. 2. Don't react by instinct. Respond with wisdom. There's something strange about human emotion. It always arrives before reason. You're criticized, and you want to strike back. You're hurt, and you want to protect yourself with anger or cold silence. You feel insecure, and you scramble to prove your worth. In that moment, instinct kicks in fast as lightning, no reflection, no concern for the consequence. But that's exactly what makes you easy to control. The person who angers you has gained momentary power over your mind. The person who saddens you now governs your energy. And if you let the outside world dictate your inner behavior, you've surrendered the most precious freedom a human being possesses: the freedom to choose your response. The Stoic doesn't reject emotion, they simply refuse to be ruled by it. Epictetus once said, "No one can hurt you unless you allow it." That doesn't mean you must become numb. It means that when emotions arrive, you learn to sit with them as guests, not hand them the keys and let them drive your life into a dead end. There's a vast difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is automatic. It often rises from wounds unhealed. Response is deliberate. It comes from a person who knows that emotions are not commands, but signals. And your task is to hear them but not obey them. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled not only an empire, but also himself, wrote, "If you're distressed by something external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your interpretation of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's a profound reminder. You cannot control the world, but you can always control the meaning you assign to it. This is especially crucial today, where a single comment online can enrage you, where one email can ruin your day, where a stranger's glance can make you question your worth. But ask yourself, do I really need to respond to this? If not, that's a moment where you retain your power. Practicing this isn't easy, but it begins with small steps. When you feel triggered, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? And instead of rushing to act, let it pass like a wave. Don't suppress it. Don't run from it. Just let it move through without grabbing hold. The Stoic doesn't live like a machine. They live with such deep observation that they can distinguish real emotion from old reflex, wise choice from impulsive act. They don't shout in anger. They don't flee in fear. They stay, they observe, and they act from clarity, not from chaos. And the beauty is, when you train long enough, calm becomes your new instinct. You're no longer pulled by every insult or minor setback. You no longer need to prove yourself every time you're misunderstood. You can stand in the chaos with clarity in your eyes, stillness in your heart, and integrity in your every choice. You'll see this clearly in daily life. The person who darkens the room isn't the one who's angry. It's the one who can't control their anger. The person others respect isn't loud. It's the one who knows when to stay silent and when to speak. That's the power of emotional mastery, not because you feel nothing, but because you let no feeling dictate your life. Emotions are a vital part of being human, but only when you can see them clearly do you truly live, instead of being controlled. 3. Stop demanding fairness. Become strong instead. There are days when you do everything right and still receive nothing in return. You give your best at work, but someone else gets the credit. You are sincere in a relationship, only to be the one left behind. You uphold your word, your kindness, your integrity, and in return, you're met with silence, indifference, or worse, betrayal. And then, somewhere inside, a sigh escapes. Life just isn't fair. That thought feels reasonable. It gives you permission to be sad. It offers an excuse to stop trying. But be honest and look deeper. Fairness has never been guaranteed. Not by society, not by fate, not by anyone. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You can commit injustice simply by doing nothing." If an emperor, someone with absolute power, still witnessed injustice daily, why should we expect life to always be fair to us? This isn't bitterness, it's clarity. Because only when you stop demanding fairness from the world can you begin to focus on the one thing you can control, your inner strength. Fairness is a noble ideal, but an ideal, when clung to too tightly, can make you fragile. When you say, "I should have been treated better," what you're really saying is, "I don't want to accept this reality." And the more you resist reality, the more you suffer. The Stoic doesn't run from what is. They face it as it is, and from there, find their way forward. Because the truth is, the wrong person can win. The lazy can rise. And you with your values, your effort, your heart can still be hurt, misunderstood or left behind. But instead of complaining, they choose another path, the path of inner strength. Not to become numb, but to avoid being broken by what lies beyond their control. You can't demand a fair world, but you can become so strong that even injustice can't bend you. That's the difference between the reactive and the proactive. One waits for fairness to arrive. The other builds value from within. Think back to the moments you felt most disappointed. Didn't they stem from unmet expectation? When you believed that doing good would bring good? When you thought someone would see your effort? But the world doesn't operate according to your moral logic. And that doesn't make you any less. It just means you need a new perspective, clearer, more grounded, more resilient. Seneca once said, "Sometimes, simply continuing to live is an act of courage." That statement isn't for those who hope for an easy life. It's for those who understand injustice is part of life, but integrity is always within your grasp. So what will you choose? To keep blaming the world for its unfairness, then live in resentment and fatigue? Or to train a mind that won't easily waver, a spirit that won't erode under adversity? Each time you consciously choose how to respond to injustice, you're building a shield for yourself. Not a shield to fight others, but one to guard your dignity from the expectations that once made you suffer. And remember this, no one can take your true worth unless you hand it away. Fairness is a hope. Strength is a choice. And the Stoic, they choose strength, even in an unfair world. 4. Control what's within reach. Let go of the rest. Have you ever felt exhausted simply from thinking too much about things beyond your grasp? You worry about what others think of you. You fume over someone's words. You lie awake at night over an outcome that can no longer be changed. And suddenly life feels like a chain reaction, one thing triggering another, dragging you along like someone who has lost the power to choose. That's how most people live, under the grip of things they cannot control. And that's why peace continues to elude them. Because the more you cling to what isn't yours to hold, the easier it becomes to drop what truly belongs to you. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Epictetus once said, "Your job is to manage what is yours and accept what is not." This is more than advice. It's the dividing line between inner freedom and constant frustration. When you don't draw this line, you live in confusion. But when you start defining what's yours to carry and what belongs to the world, you begin to steady yourself. This world is full of sudden disruptions. Bad news can arrive at any moment. Someone you trust may change. A carefully built plan may collapse. But that doesn't mean you must live in constant anxiety. It only means you need to return to what you truly can control yourself. You can't control the weather, but you can bring a raincoat. You can't control who loves whom, but you can control how you love. You can't control a chaotic world, but you can control whether you let yourself become chaotic too. And when your attention is placed in the right spot, you'll feel the relief settle into every decision. Picture your mind like a room. Every time you focus on something outside your control, you open a door for more noise to enter. Over time, the room is no longer your sanctuary. It becomes a chaotic market of expectation, fear, envy, and disappointment. But you can close those doors, and you should not, because you don't care, but because you're protecting what matters most, your clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you stop trying to change everything around you, you begin to change how you move through everything. And from there, you shift from reactivity to intentionality, from confusion to focus, from turmoil to stillness. Practice this daily like a habit. When someone says something that upsets you, instead of reacting, ask, "Is this within my control?" When the outcome disappoints you, ask, "Have I done my part?" If yes, let go. If not, adjust and continue. That is awareness, not resignation. The Stoic isn't indifferent. They simply don't let uncertainty drain energy from what is certain. Their action, their discipline, their way of being. They don't blindly trust fate, but neither do they foolishly fight the wind. They observe, they steer, and they place all their strength on the rudder, where they truly have control of their ship. When you live with clear awareness of the limits of your power, you don't grow weaker, you grow stronger. Because you no longer waste yourself on battles that mean nothing. Instead, you become sharp, alert, and reliable. You become someone others turn to when everything feels chaotic, not because you have all the answers, but because you hold on to the only thing that matters, yourself. And in a world constantly shifting, the one who can hold steady is the one who is truly free. 5. Train in simplicity. Before life forces you to be strong, most of us only learn to be resilient after everything falls apart. Only when we lose comfort do we learn to live simply. Only after betrayal do we learn to set boundaries. Only when we're hurt do we turn to inner strength. But the Stoic does not wait for life to force change. They stay one step ahead. They choose discipline, simplicity, and mindfulness while everything is still fine. Because they know, if you don't train during peace, you won't stand firm when the storm comes. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, once advised, "Set aside a few days where you live as if you had nothing, eat the plainest food, wear rough clothing, sleep on the ground, and ask yourself, is this what I was afraid of?" That question may sound gentle, but it is a moment of revelation. Because most of our fears don't come from reality, but from untested imagination. And once you dare to step into the very situation you've avoided, you'll realize you're stronger than you thought, and reality is far less frightening than the mind. Training in simplicity is not asceticism, not self-punishment, and not living in poverty in a modern world. It's a conscious choice to strip away what silently weakens you: dependency on comfort, unchecked indulgence, and the reflex to seek ease at the first sign of discomfort. Each time you choose the easy path, you trade away a piece of willpower. Each time you delay inconvenience, you teach yourself that you can't endure anything beyond your comfort zone. The Stoic understands that willpower is like a muscle. It weakens when unused and sharpens when trained regularly. Not through grand gestures, but through small, quiet, consistent actions. Like waking up early when no one demands it. Like walking instead of taking the easy ride. Like eating in moderation even when you can have whatever you want. That's how you build quiet endurance, a silent strength, yet lasting. Think of someone you admire. It could be a coach, a father, a sister, a close companion. What you respect in them isn't what they say, but what they quietly practice when no one's watching. That unwavering repetition of small habits, that's the foundation of a character that won't be shaken. And you can become that kind of person if you have the courage to choose discipline over momentary ease. Because one day, life will take something from you. A sudden crisis, an unexpected loss, a harsh season, and by then, you'll have no time left to prepare. You'll have to face reality with only what you've quietly built beforehand. It might be the ability to remain calm when others panic, the simplicity of spirit when everything around collapses, the habit of gratitude for small things, even when the big things are gone. And those qualities, they are not innate. They are built through disciplined living in a comfortable life. See simplicity as a deliberate act, not because you lack, but because you understand the value of restraint. Not because you wish to retreat from the world, but because you want to enter it with a steady foundation. And not because you despise comfort, but because you refuse to become its slave. The Stoic does not reject joy, but they will not trade their inner strength for the fleeting pleasure of indulgence. They don't fight life. They simply prepare for it in silence, in discipline, in simplicity. And when the hard day truly comes, they don't ask, "Why me?" They simply tighten the reins of their mind, step forward and say, "I've been waiting for this day. I'm ready." 6. Don't obsess over results. Fall in love with the process. You start something full of excitement, a new habit, a personal project, a relationship, a self-development journey. But just a few weeks or even days in, you feel discouraged because the results aren't showing. You hit the gym 5 times, look in the mirror, and feel disappointed. You write something heartfelt, post it, and no one cares. You treat someone with kindness, but still receive coldness in return, and you wonder, is it worth it? That question isn't wrong, but it comes from a dangerous assumption that the value of an action is measured by its result, that without a visible reward, effort is meaningless. And that's the very trap that makes us quit just when we're on the right path. Not because we lack ability, but because we place our expectations in the wrong place. The Stoic does not measure success by reward. They measure it by steadiness in effort, because they understand outcomes are always partly beyond our control. But action, how you show up, how you work, how you choose virtue over convenience is always fully yours. And in that ownership, you find freedom. Epictetus once said, "True freedom is when you are no longer dependent on what lies beyond your control." And that includes recognition, success, praise, and all the beautiful expectations you once held. Not because you no longer desire them, but because they no longer define your worth. Look at the most persistent people you know. They don't always achieve dazzling results, but they remain consistent. They don't swing with the highs and lows of life. They show up at the gym even when there's no visible change. They write, build, and learn even without applause. They love the process not because it's always pleasant, but because they know results are a consequence, not a compass. When you tie your identity to results, you risk falling apart when things don't go your way. But when you anchor yourself in discipline, presence, and doing the right thing, you become unshakable. A person like that doesn't need to win to feel proud. They feel proud for beginning, for persevering, for upholding virtue even when no one's watching. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let not your mind be troubled by what lies ahead. Meet it with the same reason that has guided you through this day." It's a way of living fully in the present, step by step, act by act, with your focus on the process, not on obsession with what might happen. You cannot force a flower to bloom early. You can only water it daily, tend the soil, and wait for the season. Likewise, you cannot force life to reward you on your schedule, but you can plant kind actions, nurture discipline, and let results come when they're ready. Practice this every day. Write without needing praise. Learn without needing validation. Work with integrity even when no one sees. When you act as though the process is its own reward, you stop chasing success. You become someone worthy of it. And something strange will happen. The results will start arriving when you've stopped obsessing over them, because you're no longer begging. You're no longer passive in pursuit of recognition. You act with the calm confidence of someone who knows where they're going and knows who they are. And when results come, you receive them with gratitude, not dependency. When they don't come, you keep walking, not rushed, not doubtful, simply continuing, like a sculptor chipping away at stone. Not because every strike shapes the form, but because they know persistence will eventually reveal the masterpiece. Don't live like one chasing reward. Live like one who loves the journey, because when you love the process, you don't need results to feel secure. You've already carried strength within you, and no one can take that away. 7. Remember death. To live more deeply, not more urgently. We live as if we'll never die. We postpone what matters, as if there's a whole lifetime to do it later. We hold on to relationships that have run dry, as if time is infinite. We let days pass in a blur of haste, distraction, and fatigue, without ever stopping to ask, what kind of life am I living? The Stoic does not avoid death. They keep it present as a reminder, not to fear it, but to remember that each moment is finite. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That is not pessimism. That is the highest form of awareness. Because when you remember that time is not yours, you begin to cherish every moment as if it were your last. No more waiting until tomorrow to apologize. No more holding off until the perfect opportunity to begin. No more living as if you have time to waste on delay, on bitterness, on endless complaints. Imagine waking up one morning and knowing today is your last day. Not in panic, but with clarity. Who would you thank? What would you forgive? What would you finally do? Whom would you love fully, and what would you walk away from that's been quietly draining your spirit? Death, when seen through wise eyes, doesn't chill you, it makes you warmer. You no longer live for meaningless things. You stop arguing to win. You stop rushing because others are running. You begin to slow down, not out of laziness, but to feel fully. A hug is held longer, a gaze lingers deeper. Words are spoken with honesty, no longer hidden. Seneca once reminded us, it's not that we have too little time, but that we waste too much of it. And that is a brutal truth we all come to realize usually too late. We spend our best years worrying about things that never happen. We carry in our hearts conversations that never took place. We live as though we're rehearsing for a life that will start later, forgetting that this is the real one. The Stoic doesn't talk much about death. They simply prepare for it by living each day fully. No postponing kindness, no delaying action, no waiting to live by their true values. They don't need to do great things. They only need to do the right things consistently, without waiting for recognition. So practice this simple act. Each morning when you wake, instead of complaining about a new day, whisper to yourself, "Today could be my last." And let that guide you, not to rush, but to go deeper, not to act out of pressure, but to speak from inner freedom. You'll find you no longer want to live fast. You'll want to live deep. Deep enough to hear the silence between your words. Deep enough to feel grateful for small things, a simple meal, a clear sky, a hand that holds yours at the right time. And deep enough that you no longer need to prove anything to the world, because you know all wisdom, all strength, all true love blossom from the clear awareness that we are not here forever. Death is the one who reminds us of the value of presence. It is not a period. It is a quiet question, asking you, how are you living? And if you dare to ask that every day, you'll start living differently, not with regret, not with heaviness, not chasing an image. You'll live like someone who knows life waits for no one. And instead of chasing it, you'll choose to be fully present in every moment, every decision, every breath. 8. Live for virtue, not for applause. We grow up in a world that teaches us anything applauded is worth doing, and anything noticed is worth pursuing. From an early age, we learn to seek others' eyes to validate our worth. A post needs likes. A good deed needs to be seen. A success only matters if it's praised. And so we live dependent on recognition, like vines chasing sunlight, not to live, but to be seen. But living like that is a game with no finish line, because applause is the most unstable thing in the world. Today they admire you, tomorrow they turn away. Today you're called inspiring, tomorrow you're the subject of gossip. And if your self-worth is tied to applause, you'll live like a boat without an anchor adrift in public opinion, swayed by every raised eyebrow. The Stoic sees this differently. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's not arrogance, it's a grounded way of living. Because virtue, integrity, honesty, kindness, courage doesn't need a stage to shine. It's what you do when no one's watching and still take pride in choosing what's right. In a world of appearances, the authentic person seems strange. In an era of performance, integrity becomes rebellion. Because doing the right thing when praised is easy, but holding your principles when no one knows, or worse, when misunderstood, is the real test of a mature spirit. And it's in those unseen moments that you discover what you truly live for, the crowd's attention or an inner standard no one can touch. Living for virtue doesn't mean being rigid, cold, or forcing yourself into some distant moral ideal. It means having a spine, a spiritual backbone that keeps you upright amid temptation, criticism, and offers to compromise. It's the strength to say no to what's easy, to keep your word when others forget, to do good when no one applauds, to stay kind in a world full of competition and manipulation. Seneca once wrote, "Live as if your thoughts were visible to everyone." That's not a threat. It's an invitation to live transparently, with no mask, no performance, no need to manipulate others to maintain your place. Just do your part and let the rest reveal itself in time. And strangely, when you stop seeking validation, you become more trustworthy in others' eyes, because steadiness doesn't shout, it's felt. The virtuous person doesn't need to prove anything, but they're the one others turn to for a clear voice, a kind act, or advice without self-interest. Look at your own life. How many things have you done just to be liked? How many words have you spoken just to please others? How many times have you stayed silent, knowing you were losing your own boundary? And if that answer makes you feel unsteady, it's time to return to what's real, to live not to be liked, but to be respected first and foremost by yourself. Because in the end, you won't remember how many people applauded you, but you will never forget the feeling of doing what you knew was right, whether anyone saw it or not. And that feeling, that quiet power, will carry you far, carry you steady, and leave you with no need to look back and wonder what others think. To live for virtue is to live free, not led by expectations, not shaken by opinions, not traded for the desire to stand out. It's to live like a mountain, silent, steady, unmoved. I don't say these things because I've mastered them all. I say them because I used to live the exact opposite. I used to chase praise just to feel worthy, used to get angry over a cold glance, used to demand life be fair in return for what I gave. But then, things began to change, not when someone finally recognized me, but when I quietly observed how I reacted to the smallest moments in life. Stoic philosophy didn't arrive to me as some lofty lecture. It came on a quiet afternoon when I realized, if I don't train myself during peace, no one will save me when the storm hits. And from that moment on, I stopped seeking strength from the outside. I chose to build it within, silently, steadily. No applause needed, no validation required, just what is right and enough. If this video touched something within you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. Because in the end, true freedom doesn't come from controlling the world, it comes from mastering yourself in every circumstance. I'll see you in the next video.